Hi folks, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to look at the Askar C2 dual band filter, which filters the sulfur 2 and oxygen 3 regions of emission objects. And we're going to see what kind of results we get when we combine that filter with the eXtreme, the Optolong eXtreme filter, which is a dual band but has hydrogen alpha and oxygen 3 bandwidths as well. The idea is to see if we can actually get a pretty much a true Hubble pallate image from a one-shot color camera. I'm Dr. Ray and welcome to AstroGadge. Okay, so here is said Askar Color Magic C2 dual band filter. It's quite a funky little box if you like that sort of thing. As it says here, it's 2-inch, obviously for the ZWO 2600 MC Pro. It has a sulfur 2 and oxygen 3 dual band on it. So inside the box, there's the usual plastic container with the filter inside. Nothing particularly spectacular. And I should point out as well that I paid for this with my own money. I have no affiliation to Askar, financial or otherwise, and I bought it purely for the purposes of the subject of this video. Before we continue, it's worthwhile looking at the specs of these two filters I talked about. The Optolong eXtreme filter, like I said, is basically a filter to bring out or to let through wavelengths of light that correspond to the hydrogen alpha and oxygen 3 emissions in nebula and other deep sky objects. The C2 is designed to let lights equivalent to the sulfur 2 band and the oxygen 3 band, again from emission objects. The C2 has about double the bandwidth. It's much less precise. For the sulfur 2, it's 15 nanometers, and for the oxygen 3, it's about 35 nanometers. And what the bandwidth simply tells us is how efficient the filter is at basically filtering out light other than the wavelengths we're interested in. So something with a larger bandwidth is much less precise than something with a lower bandwidth. There are different variants of the Askar Color Magic dual band filters. There's the C2, which we've just talked about, but there's also the D2. And the D2, if you like, is an upgrade. The D2 has a much more precise bandwidth than the C2. However, it also is about 3 times the cost. So consequently, before I shell out that sort of money, I wanted to check out how good or how bad the C2 was for the intended purposes of trying to get a true color palette in combination with the eXtreme filter. When we actually look at the costs of the eXtreme compared to the C2 and the D2, then you can see there's quite a huge difference in price. And really at the end of it, yeah, sure, some of these filters have a much stricter bandwidth than others, but what sort of results can we expect for something with a greater bandwidth than the other two, i.e. the C2? So that's the question we have to ask ourselves, really. On paper, the C2 looks inferior, but what sort of results can we expect from it? My intention is to use these two filters in combination with the Skywatcher Esprit 120 Apo refractor. And the object I'm going to test on is the Rosette Nebula in monoceros. I've chosen that object because it's fairly bright, and secondly, I know from imaging it in the past that it has a high component attributable to sulfur 2. So that's the plan. I'm going to go out and image it. It looks like it's going to be a good night tonight, so we're going to get some data, and then we're going to process it. I'll go through how I process it and see what sort of results we've got. So here are the integrated frames with each filter straight from the camera. They've only had the screen transfer function applied to them, so no other processing involved. These were taken 240-second and subs for about, they both represent about an hour's worth of integration. This one here is using the C2, the Askar C2 Color Magic sulfur 2 oxygen 3 filter, and this is taken with my existing Optolong L eXtreme hydrogen alpha oxygen 3 dual band filter. You can see there's quite a difference in the star size. That's undoubtedly down to the difference in the bandwidth, which we talked about earlier. But pretty much, they're both pretty decent images in my opinion. The next thing I did was to extract the channels from each of these integrated images. So starting with the C2 filter, the sulfur and oxygen filter, simply go to the channel extraction tab here and click on it, and lo and behold, it produces blue channel, the green channel, and the red channel, which in this case, the red channel is the sulfur, which looks something like that. The green channel is your oxygen, part of the filter, and the blue channel is just residual, which we don't really want, so we're just going to keep these two for the time being. So we now perform a similar exercise for the eXtreme filter, which has a hydrogen alpha and oxygen 3 in it. Alright, so I've renamed all of the channel extracts a bit better, just so they're easier to use. And what I've done is I have linked the sulfur 2 channel to the red channel in the new combination. I've put the hydrogen alpha in the green channel, and I've put the oxygen 3 from the eXtreme into the blue channel to give us this to give us this SHO Hubble pallate. And then once we've done that, it's simply a question of combining them and stretching them. And already it's starting to look like a true Hubble palette. Notice that the stars have gone magenta, as is what happens with a monochrome camera, and the sulfur, hydrogen, oxygen combination in that particular order. So all looks good. It's had background neutralization. It's had an automatic background extraction performed. It's had a color calibration performed, and it has had a blur extermination performed. It's still, however, in a linear state, so we need to stretch it. So we turn off the screen transfer function, and we use one of Bill Blanch's tools here, the HT unlinked stretch, and there we go. We have our stretched image. Now, coming back to, we've got these horrible magenta stars, which I talked about before, which is a consequence of the Hubble pallate rendition. Now, there's a nice little trick you can use here to get rid of these, unless you like them, of course. But if you want to get rid of these magenta stars, or the magenta hue on the stars, there's a nice little trick here you can use, which is equally applicable to monochrome astrophotography, using the appropriate filters to get the Hubble palette. And the way to do it is simply to go to Process and Invert. And as you can see here, the image has been inverted. Now, it's important that this is done in the non-linear stage, i.e. after a stretch. And you'll notice that the complementary color of magenta is green. So all we have to do is go over to our SNCR, which is a green filter or green illuminator, and get rid of the green component here, which you can see is now gone to sort of black. We get rid of that, we don't need it. And simply go back to invert. Voila. We can now begin work on the nebula component. We'll put the stars thing aside for the time being. Put that down here. Okay. So again, just as in the past, we simply let's play about with these masks. We're creating a yellow mask here, and then once it's created, it should be created in a second or two. We simply apply it to the image, but before that, we'll put a little blur onto it. As I said, the reason for it in past is, the reason for put a blur in is so that the curves adjustments that we're about to make aren't too harsh. It just basically means there's a greater or a better transition between the colors. So let's not visualize the mask, and then we can go and do curves till our heart is content. For example, let's adjust the red channel here, and you can see it's already had an effect. Likewise, we can do the same with the green. Now, I'm just doing this to show you the process. I'm not going to do everything here. It takes quite a while. If you take your time, you get much better results. And on and on we go, using the different masks and the different curve transformations. It's really, as I've said in previous videos, it's a question of taking the time over this, and it's a question of, you know, playing around till you get the effect that you desire. Do what any processing you want on the stars component, and again recombine using pixel math, again like I've shown in previous videos, and we should end up with something hopefully that we're pleased with. So here's pretty much almost finished product, but you can see differences already. This has just been this is just using the eXtreme Optolong eXtreme filter in its entirety, not done anything really to or not process this image in any other way than I normally have shown. And you know, and as I said before, when we're first looking at the LX filter, you know, it's something. I think it's quite a compelling image. It's quite a striking image, and I think, as I said at the time, it compared favourably to the monochrome image I'd taken of this object with using, you know, separate filters. But when you combine in the C2, the S2 channel from the C2 filter, along with the oxygen 3 from the LEX and the hydrogen alpha from the LEX, all I know is we've pretty much got a true Hubble image here. Well, as near as damn it, I think. So that filter seems to make all the difference with that extra channel. And the thing is, with the sulfur 2 signal, you're getting a lot more latitude in your color rendition, and dare I say it, there's more information there. So I'm quite pleased with the results, actually. I didn't know quite what to expect with the C2 given its bandwidth. But yeah, I'm, as far as I can see from it, I've got pretty much a true Hubble palette. I've mapped the sulfur 2 to the red, I've matched the hydrogen alpha to the green, and I've mapped the oxygen 3 to the blue. And what can I say? It gives a very acceptable image. Regardless of this large bandwidth compared to its more expensive upgrade. But the reason I think that I've probably got away with that a bit is the area where I image, where I live, has very little light pollution. It's a Bortle 3, Bortle 4 sky. In the immediate vicinity of where I image, there are no streetlights. And even sort of villages and towns in the distance, some miles away, they use, like a lot of places in Scotland, LED street lamps that are designed to actually minimize light pollution, that they actually project the light downwards. So even with street lights, they no longer use the old sodium powered lighting. And as I say, what street lighting we have here, tends to be directed downwards to actually prevent light pollution. So I don't know. It remains to be seen what with very little light pollution, I'm not going to get up with a larger or a broader bandwidth of filter. I'm not going to get as much as spillover into the sulfur 2 or oxygen 3 regions from light pollution because there isn't that much here. So from what I'm thinking is, I'm not sure that the D2, for me at least, would be worth the extra cost in terms of results. For people in very light polluted areas, it probably would be. I don't know. I'm surmising, but that's my hunch because the results I've got, I'm very pleased with. They only an hour integration on each filter. With a bit more integration time, I reckon get very, very good results indeed. So very pleased with it. And for the price, I think it was about £90. It's very much a budget filter, but certainly in the area where I'm imaging, it seems to work extremely well. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd be interested to hear that. Meantime, I'm going to throw them up, both images up on the screen, along with I'm going to put up the Hubble palette image, along with the hydrogen, oxygen eXtreme image, just as normal, just for you to look at. As I said, they're not brilliant images, could have done with a little bit more integration, but that's not the filter. See what you think, and again, if you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments. I'd be interested to see what you all think. Anyway, let's have a look. Well, folks, that's it for this session. I hope you find it interesting. I certainly found it interesting. I didn't really quite know what to expect, but as I say, I think as a budget filter, it performs pretty well. Whether or not in a more light polluted environment it would, I don't know. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to give us the thumbs up, and please consider subscribing. It helps the channel. It doesn't cost anything. It simply means that you get heads up when I produce more content. So thanks again, and remember, keep watching the skies.
Watch the skies everywhere. Keep looking. Keep watching the sky.